what is good in its proper amount becomes really bad when it becomes excessive, okay? Another example of what I would call a pregnant specific, something that's a very specific situation described, but full of application to other situations, would be in 26:27, Proverbs 26:27. It says, whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and whoever rolls a stone will have it roll back on it. Now, you know that's not exactly true. I mean, there are cases of people who dig pits and they don't fall into it. But what it's saying is, essentially, if you dig a pit, it can be your downfall. You can fall into your own pit. If you're rolling a stone up a hill, gravity may cause it to get away from you, and it may roll back on you. Now, the idea in this case, of course, is you're doing something probably maliciously. You're digging a pit to catch someone else. You're rolling a stone, to drop on somebody else, it would appear. And that, you think of, the Roadrunner cartoons when you think of this kind of thing. You've got the coyote setting all these traps for the Roadrunner, and they always spring back on him. He always, he never seems to die when he should, but he always gets smashed and crushed and blown up. And the things that he says, those are illustrations of what Solomon's talking about. You dig a pit for somebody, and you may fall into yourself. Now, this is true of many things. Haman, in the book of Esther, he built a gallows to hang Mordecai on. And in the way things turned out, because Mordecai was righteous inside of God and Haman was wicked, God providentially turned it around that Haman got impaled on his own gallows. I say impaled because gallows is a euphemism. They didn't have gallows in Persia. They had torture stakes. They impaled people, which is like making someone into a shish kebab, is what it's like. And so gallows, we think of a gallows as the Old West. They hang the horse thieves. But in Persia, they impaled them on a sharp pole. And so here he sets up what's translated as a gallows or a gibbet for Mordecai. And then he, of course, gets impaled on it himself. A good example of this. That is when you seek to do something malicious to someone else, you may be the one who suffers more than they do from it. When you get angry at somebody who did something to you, a lot of times they don't even know about it. I once in a while hear about somebody who's been angry at me for a long time, and I didn't even know they were. I think, well, they've been torturing themselves. They're trying to punish me by being angry at me, and I'm not feeling punished. I didn't even know they were angry. When I find out about it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for them. Because unless I've done something wrong to them, if they're angry for nothing, they're the ones who are suffering, not me. And so, when you're seeking to be malicious and hurtful to somebody else, it actually often will hurt you more. You might be the one who suffers, not them. Another example of this kind of phenomena, I would say, would be found in chapter 27, verse 14. This is a funny one, because a lot of the Proverbs have an element of humor in them. He who blesses his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it will be counted a curse to him. Now, blessing your friend means, when you bless someone, in biblical times when you say, God bless you, you pronounce a blessing on someone, everyone wants that. Everyone wants to be blessed. It was a friendly thing. Jesus said, bless those who curse you. That means they're cursing you, they're doing something bad to you, you give them something good. You bless them. Well, when you bless somebody, that's a good thing. But if you do it with a loud voice early in the morning, when they'd rather be sleeping, then they'll think of it as a cursing. You're uttering a blessing, you're intending well, but it'll end up being absorbed as a curse. It'll be received as something unwelcome to them. What's this mean? Well, it means, of course, that your good intentions may not be received if they are insensitively delivered. If you act with a good intention, but you haven't thought through yet whether this is really the appropriate thing that this person will appreciate. You're not aware of their circumstances or what kinds of things they may want. You're just feeling good, so you just want to be singing praises to the Lord while your roommate's trying to sleep or something, You say, well, everyone should enjoy hearing praise to the Lord. Well, maybe they would under other circumstances. But the truth is that everything that people would like having done for them or to them at some time is something that they wouldn't like at another time. And so timing has got to be appropriate. A blessing isn't always a blessing if it's at inappropriate time or in a situation where it's insensitive to what somebody else really, even the person you're hoping to bless. But, their state of mind may be such that you're not taking into consideration that you're annoying them. Some cultures are like this about offering food to you. In fact, I have to say the Korean culture has been this way sometimes, because I speak at Korean bases a lot. And they always want to heap big piles of food on me. When I'm the speaker at a YWAM base, if it's a Korean base, I come to the dining hall, and they've got this huge pile of food for me. I say, every meal. I say, I don't eat this much food. I usually only eat 2 meals a day, and they're not this big, And they go, oh, no. And they bring plate after plate after plate. One time I was in New York City speaking for a Korean YWAM base there, and the hospitality lady, the base, it was just a house, they didn't have a good kitchen, so she took me out to a Korean barbecue restaurant. And she said, you like Korean barbecue? I said, oh, I love Korean barbecue. So she took me out to this barbecue restaurant. She ordered in Korean, I couldn't hear what she was saying. Sat at this table. Anyone who's been to a Korean barbecue restaurant knows there's I think other Asian cultures have similar things where they have a flame in the middle of the table and they put the meat on there and stuff. And the woman was bringing, serving bowl after serving. There were 30 serving bowls full of different kinds of vegetables and rice and meat and stuff on the table. And I was thinking, well, I hope this lady who's with me is going to eat a lot, because I can't eat a tenth of this. Turned out she'd ordered just for me. She wasn't eating. And I thought, I was so embarrassed. It was uncomfortable to me. Everything was delicious, but I could eat 100th of it, perhaps. I mean, honestly, maybe a 30th of it. And sometimes they're just trying to be hospitable. They're just trying to be gracious, just trying to bless you. But if that's not what you are comfortable with, it only makes you embarrassed and so forth. I'm not trying to criticize Koreans. Every culture has this thing, but it's a lot of cultures do this very thing. I lived with a guy briefly when I was younger and single who was from another culture, and every time I would come into the house, he'd be cooking something. Now, I say, hey, you want some of this? And I say, no, thanks, I'm fine. And then a few minutes later, he'd come back and say, you want some of this? And I'd say, no, I'm good, thanks. And a few minutes later, he'd come back and say, you want some? And I said, and after, this happened all the time. And eventually I says, when I say I don't want something, I don't want it. Why do you keep asking me? And he said, oh, well, where I come from, if you offer someone something, they're supposed to say no the first time. Even if they really want it. And if they're really polite, they'll say no the second time. So if you say no the first 2 times, it may be that you really want it. So to me, it was just annoying. To him, he's just trying to be gracious. He's just trying to bless me, But to me, I count it as a curse. I mean, you see that same kind of culture in the Bible, like when Abraham's negotiating with the Hittites to buy the cave of Machpelah. He says, I'll pay you whatever it's worth. And the man who says, oh no, it's yours. Just take it, it's free. Well, Abraham knew better than to accept. That was the culture, And Abraham said, no, I insist on paying. And the guy said, well, if you insist on paying, it's worth this much money, which was a huge inflated price because he knew Abraham was a rich guy who could afford it and was in trouble because he had to bury a body that was rotting. And so the guy took advantage of him and charged a huge price. But the guy at first said, just take it. What is that between us? It's yours. But Abraham dared not accept that offer. That was not in the culture. That's just what you do. You just say, oh, you can have it. But they're not supposed to accept it, and sort of like that food thing, ask them 3 times before you That's all. Those are all, to my mind, examples of this same principle that, he that blesses his neighbor rising early in the morning with a loud voice is counted a curse. A blessing is a blessing, but not always. When is a blessing not a blessing? When it's loud and disturbing, And a wise person will take into consideration what really will be a blessing and not just what I feel will bless somebody. I need to consider what will really be a blessing. See, sometimes when we're trying to bless people, we're just trying to get some good feelings ourselves. You ever notice that when you give a gift at Christmas, you're watching very carefully to see if the person likes it? Is it because you really care how much they wanted one of those things? Maybe. You might be. You might be saying, oh, I just know they wanted one of these things. I can't wait to see how much they like it. Or is it just thinking, am I going to receive approval from them? Are they going to like this enough to like me for giving them this? And if it looks like they don't like it enough, you feel kind of like rejected or something. We really want to bless people, but we have our own ideas of what will be a blessing, and it's important for us to kind of pay attention to what somebody else may actually count to be a blessing when they receive it. Then there are what I refer to as striking similes. What is a simile? Everyone knows what a simile is. It's like a metaphor, right? Not a smile, Chauncey. Okay. What's the difference between a metaphor and a simile? Jesus said, I am the door to the sheepfold. That's a metaphor. If he had said, I am like a door, that'd be a simile. Similes and metaphors are really the same thing, they're just stated differently. Because when Jesus said, I am the door, he didn't mean I literally am a door, he really meant I am like a door. But if you don't use the word like, it's a metaphor. If you say like, or I am similar to, then it's a simile. That's how you remember. A simile has the word similar or something equivalent, like I am like or I'm similar to this. And so a simile is when you say this is like that. And it's usually not, you don't usually use similes unless it's something that's not at all obvious that it's like that. And you're observing a similarity between two things that is maybe not so obvious that it's worth pointing out. You've seen a similarity that maybe not everyone will see. You see some correspondence, some parallels between two things. And so there's a lot of those kinds of similes in the book of Proverbs. Again, a lot of them have humor in them. Chapter 10, verse 26 says, as vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is a sluggard to him who sends it. In other words, a sluggard is like this. Like what? Well, like vinegar is to the teeth, or like smoke is to the eyes. What is vinegar like to the teeth? What is smoke like to the eyes? Irritating, obviously. The idea is it's an irritation. When you have somebody you've sent on to give them an errand to do, when you've given them a job and you want to just walk away and make sure and hope the job gets done, and he's a sluggard and he doesn't do it, he does it he's lazy, he either doesn't do it or he does it the worst, most sloppy way or whatever, just because he's not diligent. It's irritating. It's like having smoke in your eyes. That's what we call a simile. In chapter 11 and verse 22, I've always liked this one. As a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a lovely woman who lacks discretion. You see the similarity? Maybe not. That's the point. A proverb points out a similarity you might not have seen it. Even when you're told, you might think, huh? How is a lovely woman without discretion like a ring in a pig's nose? Well, for one thing, a ring seems very inappropriate in a pig's nose. The two things seem unlike each other. Usually rings are in princesses' noses or women's noses or something. In that culture, they wear nose rings, as much as modern women wear earrings. But a pig wouldn't normally, you wouldn't decorate a pig with jewelry usually. But there's more to it than that. The idea is, if someone offered you a gold ring, you'd think that was a nice thing. But if it came with a pig attached, and you weren't running a farm, you might think, well, I think I'll pass on the ring then. Because the ring is a nice thing, but the pig is a much bigger offensive thing. If you have to receive something that's a large offensive thing with a small consolation, you might pass. And a woman who's beautiful, that's a desirable thing. Men appreciate a beautiful woman. Even women appreciate a beautiful woman. That's why advertisers sell cosmetics to women and stuff, by using models review, because even women take something seriously when it's advertised with a beautiful model. I mean, everybody's impressed with a beautiful woman for some reason. And so, that being so, a lovely woman is a positive thing. But if she lacks discretion, in other words, if she's a fool, and that would in Proverbs have moral implications too. She doesn't know how to govern her life righteously or wisely. She's a fool. Well, then a man might want to pass on it, you know? When a man sees a lovely woman, the first impression is, wouldn't mind having a woman like that. But then when she opens her mouth and she's a fool, or you can tell by her behavior that she's a fool, you think, I don't think she's that attractive, you know? It's like the unattractiveness of her character being bad overwhelms any sense of attractiveness of her looks. And like the unattractiveness of the pig cancels out the attractiveness of the ring in the nose. The ring in the nose of a pig is attractive but small compared to the big ugly pig. And so this is what he is saying. He's saying that yes, everyone knows a beautiful woman is a lovely thing, except all too often a lovely woman is also lacking in good character, and that's rather repulsive. So even a gold ring can be repulsive if it comes with a pig attached. And even a lovely woman can be repulsive if it comes with foolishness and bad character. That's the simile that he makes here. Then in chapter 25, verse 13, like the cold of snow in time of harvest is a faithful messenger to those who send him. For, he tells why, for he refreshes the soul of his masters. Now this is like the opposite of the one about the fool and the vinegar in the teeth and so forth, because you send a messenger and he's a sluggard, he doesn't do the job you send him to do. It's like vinegar to your teeth or smoke in your eyes. But if the guy you send is always reliable, you send a guy on an errand and you know he's going to do it, or you find out that he did it well, it's a relief. It's refreshing. I've known a number of business owners who've had the unpleasant task of trying to hire a workforce. And a great number of them, especially in the last few decades I've talked to, said it's incredibly hard to find reliable help. Everyone wants to take extra long coffee breaks. Everyone wants to do the least amount of work they can, go to the bathroom 4 times between coffee breaks. I mean, rob from the employer when no one's looking. It's just very hard these days, apparently. I've never been an employer, but I've talked to enough. It's really risky when you hire people. Nowadays, you don't even know if you're going to hire someone who's going to try to sue you for something. In fact, that's why they're trying to get hired. They want to get into the company so they can do something to get themselves in trouble that they can sue you for. I mean, it's a scary thing to have to trust other people to do things for you. But how refreshing it is when you trust somebody and they turn out to be trustworthy. And you know, hey, I can give this person this job. I don't have to worry about it. I don't think he's going to stab me in the back or rob me or sue me or neglect the work or take the easy way. He's got some character. And that's like snow, like cold snow at the time of harvest. Well, the harvest is late summer. In the Middle East, that's a very hot season. If you get a strange, unseasonal snow at that time, you actually like it. You're glad for it. You think, wow, a break from the heat. And that's the simile here. The trusted messenger is like that, refreshing to his master. Refreshes the soul of his master. This chapter has quite a few of them. In chapter 25, verse 19, it says, confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble, it's sort of the flip side of that, is like a bad tooth or a foot out of joint. Now this is really graphic. My dad's getting pretty old, he's in his 80s, and one day he was sitting eating dinner and he was just chewing his tooth out in his food. That happens, I guess, to people when they get old. And, you know, you don't expect that. you kind of expect your teeth to stay attached while you're chewing your food. Even, it wasn't even something especially chewy. It was just his tooth's time to go. It was a bad tooth. And, or, if you bite down on something, you don't realize that you've got a crack in your tooth or something like that. Or you don't realize there's a nerve ending, and you drink something cold, and, it surprises you. You don't expect that. You kind of expect a normal routine with your teeth. You put food in your mouth, they masticate, you swallow, it all goes well. You don't even remember you even have teeth, you just do it routinely, don't even think about it. You're trusting in your teeth to do something reliably without drawing much exceptional attention to themselves. But when you end up having a bad tooth, it's painful and extremely surprising and disappointing, obviously. And a foot out of joint, similarly, if you jump out of bed and you don't know you've got a sprained ankle from something that happened the other day, you're down on the ground. I sometimes tell the story of back when I lived in Boulder Creek, California, up in the mountains. I was running a discipleship school up there in 1975, and two of the students and I were trying to get to town, about 20 minutes drive, I think, as I recall, from Boulder Creek to Santa Cruz. We were hitchhiking, and a neighbor stopped to pick us up, he and his wife in their Porsche. And a Porsche only has front seats, no back seats, but there are 3 adult men climbing into the luggage compartment in the back to ride for 20 minutes to Santa Cruz. We were glad for the ride, better than standing outside, and we were glad to be picked up. But back where a couple of suitcases usually would go, there were 3 grown men with their knees around their ears. And sat there for 20 minutes. Now we got to our destination, he let us out. I jumped out of the car and went right down on the ground. I had no feet. My feet had almost gone, because they had fallen asleep. I didn't know it. You don't expect that, I didn't know my feet were asleep until I tried to use them. You count on them being there, and you just kind of act like they're going to be there, but when they're not there, it's really embarrassing. And when you've got a foot out of joint or a bad tooth, these things are things that you normally rely on to be regularly reliable, and when they suddenly are not, it's not only an embarrassment, it can be a pain, and it can be damaging. And so it is when you trust an unfaithful man. You trust your teeth to be there for you, you trust your feet to be there for you, but if they're not faithful, they're not reliable, there's harm suffered from it. Same thing when you trust a man to be reliable, and he's not. The next verse, 20, Proverbs 25:20. Like one who wears a garment in cold weather, and like vinegar on soda. Now you know what happens when you put vinegar on soda. It fizzes, it's volatile, right? So is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. This is kind of like blessing your neighbor with a loud voice early in the morning. If a person's not in a state of mind to appreciate having songs sung to them because they're heavy-hearted and the songs are just not expressing their sentiment. It's like pouring vinegar on soda. How it fizzes up. It's a violent reaction, really. Or it's like taking a garment away from a man in the winter. That is, when a man's in the winter cold and he has a garment on, rather than taking his garment away, it'd be better to help, put another blanket over him or something. Do something to comfort him. He's already in an uncomfortable situation. Don't make him more uncomfortable by taking away his garment. And so these are some of the things that Solomon observes. In chapter 25, verse 25, he says, as cold water to a weary soul, so is good news from a far country. That's fairly self-explanatory. Chapter 26, verse 9. Like a thorn that goes into the hand of a drunkard, so is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. The assumption is the man is really drunk. That's the image. A thorn goes in his hand, he's insensitive to it. He's feeling no pain. And he's drunk so much that though he gets punctured with a thorn, it doesn't register, It just doesn't register. So also when a fool tells a proverb, it's like he doesn't really understand. It doesn't really register. It's like he's a drunkard and there's a point to it, but he's not getting the point, He's heard a proverb and he repeats it. Or he's heard a joke and he doesn't get it, but he heard people laugh, so he retells it, but he doesn't tell it quite right because he doesn't get the point. Ever had anyone who repeated jokes, but they really had no sense of humor at all, but they wanted to be able to participate in a conversation where people were sharing jokes, so they tell a joke they've heard, but they didn't get it at the first time. And they don't tell it quite right, and they just miss it, you know, like the, I saw a cartoon once where the character was trying to repeat an old joke that as little children, you know, what did the mayonnaise say to the refrigerator? And the joke is, shut the door, I'm dressing, okay? So this person was trying to repeat that joke, and they said, what did the mayonnaise say to the refrigerator? And the person said, no, I don't know, what is it? And the person retelling the joke said, shut the refrigerator door, I'm putting my clothes on. Well, they kind of paraphrased the punchline, but they didn't know that wouldn't work. You know, it's like a proverb in the mouth of a fool. He doesn't quite get it. He doesn't get the point. Like a thorn in the hand of a drunkard, he's not. It's not registering right, and that's what apparently Solomon is suggesting here. There's a whole bunch of these also in chapter 26. We don't have time to look at all of them, but these are just some of the examples. Chapter 26:9, we just looked at. 26:17 says, he who passes by and meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes a dog by the ears. How is that like that? You know, Lyndon Johnson, former president, used to raise beagles, and there was a famous picture that they used to circulate of him holding one of his beagles up off the ground by the ears. I don't know if he's trying to show how strong their ears were or what, but I always think of this one, he that meddles in a quarrel that's not his own. Wasn't he pretty involved in the Vietnam thing? It was like a man holding a dog by his ears. But I'm thinking, what did Solomon mean by that? And I think it's this. Two people are quarreling and you're not involved. You're safe. If you leave it alone, you'll stay safe. You get involved, suddenly you're like someone who's taking a dog by the ears. What happens when you take a dog by the ears? Probably make the dog mad at you. As long as you hold its ears away from you, it can't bite you. But what are you going to do? How are you going to let go? You know, you're in it now. You know, you've got an angry dog, and you can't exactly let go now because he's mad at you. You can keep safe and away from his jaws if you've got a hold of his ears, but you let go and he's going to come after you. So it's like you've gotten yourself into something unpleasant, you've made an enemy and so forth, but you're not really able to extricate yourself from it. Not easily anyway. And so we have these kinds of similes. We're going to take a break now.